So before I start the Conquistadors, I've marked up the counters of the cities. I chose not to mark up the difference, the yellow to this kind of paler whitish color. I think I can distinguish those, and I can keep them, on different maps. I also marked up the brown counters. Now, what was interesting to me, one reason I could see for these leaders, these conquistadors, not being in the same set as the red set, is that there might be a reserved good card there. Now, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There are enough of the red ones to go around twice with 5 players. So it may not make much sense, right, to have these guys be more powerful. But that would reserve the possibility of like a decent pick coming in for, say, players 5 and 4 that they wouldn't be able to get from here. It's not the case at all. These are all strictly worse. I mean, maybe not than everybody. So Orellano has a 2. Coronado has a 2. These guys, Candia is horrible. But these guys are all 1s across the board. And if we look at these guys, well, Ponce de Leon is as bad as some of the Browns. So you might make an argument that you could get somebody who's a little bit specialized, but better than de Leon. Hernandez Cordoba is got no diplomacy value. If you really want to rely on diplomacy, you get an option here with Coronado, who's better at diplomacy, although his overall values are equivalent. So it's certainly not protecting the 4 and 5 player. They're going to get the best of the rest. They're going to get a couple of mediocre, moderate level ones. But what it may be protecting is for some interesting options for the 1 and 2 player to come out if they want an auxiliary. That's the best I can see of it. But honestly, if somebody wanted to pick one of these, it would leave a better options from the red deck. And so I kind of don't see why they're separated out the way they are. I'll play it by the rules because I don't see any harm to it. It's just a little bit of an annoyance in terms of the separation when I have to find the leaders by specifics. Now, I think that's about it. We will continue and complete the setup portion, and I'll come back. Normally, I don't have to doctor the game with most games before I start playing. In this case, it may be in part because I started playing a little bit, ahead of time, that I noticed how how annoying the sorting was of these. Certainly, I would not have noticed that, and I wouldn't have marked them if I didn't mark these guys. Marking these guys, these were just horrible, and there's no other word to cope with them. I left the blue and the purple unmarked, just put numbers on the others, because they're absolutely distinguishable. But this one is another one in the same line as those others. These are all a little close. Like, there were things that could have been done. So the same way they did bordering here and could have used that to distinguish rather than just the inside sector. You kind of wish they had done it with the players as well, but all the players have a kind of this tannish bordering to their counters. And again, it just kind of makes it all... It's this failure in the graphic design department in terms of, hey, how distinguishable that is. I really do think the maps are beautiful, and I think they're functional. They're not a problem. The only issue being these little ones here that are lacking the minus sign, I guess. And this is a typo. Well, something that got through, got through to the printing and wasn't in conjunction, wasn't in alignment with the rules. But yeah, for the most part, everything seems pretty reasonable. But man, I can't even imagine. I'm just guessing that the proofs that they had before the actual printing were not as bad as what the counters are, because I can't imagine anybody approving and saying, yeah, that works, unless, they have some overworked schmuck doing it who didn't think to look and see, didn't try to play the game with the components that they gave in the proof, or something like that. Hey, everything looks aligned, it's all right, those are the right things on there. And then, just not really, somebody might just not have realized who was looking at it, as opposed to someone who's really, really intimate with the project. And certainly nobody tried to fiddle around with those pieces, cut them out or whatever, and take a look. Does this work? And no. I'm not sure that that's normal, having to do that, right? I suspect they just look at the proof copies and say, yeah, it looks good. And it's a matter of somebody slipping through. But yeah, it might be a warning. I don't know. I have no idea. Yeah, you'd think they'd compare them to original artwork or whatever and see, those colors are a little off, man. Let's ask something. I don't know. All right, we'll get started. You know what? I was planning on playing with 4. The game holds 5. I've decided to go with the full 5, which is more in keeping with how I normally do things, right? Let's play with the maximum player count, see how it plays with that. Part of the reason is that's going to create... So, 2 players on each map. I've played 2 on this map. It did feel a little clunky in terms of people colliding with each other early. That was unpleasant. Making what I thought were good choices. One coming out of Panama, one landing in the Yucatan, sort of the earliest places you could land, and getting close to the 4-point cities. I think it takes an extra turn to get to one of these, but you're further away from other players and closer to the legends, so there could be an argument either way on that. And obviously, if you're playing the basic game, you don't really have this case, because you start out wherever you like, kind of on any coastal area that you like, and you can operate from there. And I think there's probably room for 2 players in here. What I'm curious about is what happens with that 5th player, right? I could see 2 players per map in the 4-player game. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say that the initial starting positioning is just the sequence that I laid people down in. We're going to have to do the impulses a little differently. Now, this is going to, having so many players, but I don't know if there's a big difference between 4 and 5 for me, is going to be an issue in terms of the strategy cards that you have, that are kind of reactive. Pawing through reaction cards and such not is kind of a pain in the ass, and there are a fair amount of them in this game. More, I think, than in... you're more likely to use them for that in this than I think you would in Geronimo, using cards to screw with people. And they're more reactive. In Geronimo, you play it as your turn, if I recall correctly, which is a totally different situation. I've spread out all the red leaders to begin with. There are 2 that are better. Oh, this is going to suck. You know what? I'm gonna fix the ordering. I'm gonna go there, 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 there for the initial ordering. The reason for that is I want to get decent leaders on each map. And the players, by where they're positioned, are going to kind of go after that map instead of otherwise. So I think that's actually a fairer representation. So our first character here there are really two that shine, as expected, Pizarro and Cortez. And since it's over on this map, he's going to grab Cortez. Now let's take a look at how the sequence is done here. I'm going to have trouble because I don't have a place to put the rules. I mean, I can put them in that corner over there, but then I can't really sit and describe them as well. So let's take a look at what the sequence of the starting setup is. So first, each player places their allied city, their markers in front of them. So at the Conquistadors, each player chooses a starting Conquistador, roll 2 dice for initiative to determine order of selection. Then we go backwards for the second one. We do the purchasing, and we place the units. Okay, so we do everything before we get to the next player's choice. And that's kind of a big deal. So let me show you the mechanism in play there. And we find Cortez. He'll be my leader there. I find, sorry about the light. Got it glaring right down on there. Yeah, usually I don't showcase what's over there. Okay, so we go over here and we look for the funds table. This is 1 die. You've got to be careful. I tried rolling 2 dice last time. There will not be any modifiers in play here. And this is the only time you use the initial setup. So I roll. Cortez is only going to get 13 bucks. There's a fair amount of randomness, right? How good is your initial Conquistador and how good is your initial roll? And your secondary roll for that matter. So let's get all these things. 13 is not a lot. So I'm probably looking more at 26. I want to buy a horsey. No, I want to buy 3 horsies, which cost me 12. Best bang for their buck in terms of cost. 13, 14, 15. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. We're going to go completely into debt here. So we have no pesos left, and we have 13 bucks in debt. And that's the blue player choice. I put these guys here. I could start at Panama. I didn't like how that made me feel sealed off, so I'm going to start up here. And that gets me on the right map. Similarly, and this is why I did the alternation, the second best character to take is Pizarro here. So he's going to grab Pizarro. Now Pizarro historically went with a much smaller force. Cortez went with as big a force, this huge force. He's got a good rally value, so does Pizarro. Pizarro has better combat, which is one of the reasons he maybe can get away with a less force, because he gets an additional +1 on the combat results table. I don't know how safe that is, but Cortez historically went with a very, very large force. So for Pizarro, we're going to roll a die. We get a 3. That's 14 bucks. No biggie there. Let's see what we get there. Okay, with 14 bucks, and by the way, I kind of feel like these counters are too big to have on the tracks. Now, I could keep him over on this records track. I've been using this for the game turn, and that would help reduce clutter if I do this. And that's how it's intended to be used. Okay, so 14 bucks. Well, I definitely want 3 horses. They're just so bonus. It's the maximum you can get. If I do take reinforcements, I want to keep increasing them. So that's 12. I want an artillery. There's an advantage to artillery. That gets me to 15. 16, 17, 18, 19. One more so I can carry food. 20, 21. That means red is going to spend all their money and be 7 bucks in debt. I can put that there too. and these forces translate over. It's still a big force. I don't want to go with a silly small force. I feel like that's just asking for trouble, and I don't think anybody's going to make, is going to do that. That gets me over here, and I got to think, and I got to swap my battery out about, hey, what leader would I want, given this situation? And it's really going to be looking, well, let's look at the rest of the leaders. So I got a combat diplomacy. That's pretty good, 2 of each. Rally diplomacy seems less interesting. So yeah, third one's going to go with Almagro. And I suspect these choices, the choice between Cortez and Pizarro, they're both good. They're both very good, and there's slight differences. And that's kind of I think people are going to be choosing between, a couple at most on each pick. The combination of combat and diplomacy, I see those as more important than rally. Rally is seldom used. I didn't use it yet in my game. Nobody had taken a morale hit. Obviously, if you start taking morale hits, though, it could become very important. But I don't think it's as important as combat and diplomacy. Okay, so let's do a roll for him and see what kind of money he's going to have. Then I'll swap out rather than, show you that whole little mechanical aspect there. He gets tons of money. He gets 20 bucks. Everybody's going to crowd on here. That opportunity to say, you know what, I can get as big a force as everyone else without taking the debt. I'm going to just do that. That seems reasonable. A decent sized force seems like a good idea. Wonder how you... Oh, governor modifier can give you a negative penalty there too. Okay. That is going to put me over here. And De Soto is pretty good. Alvarado is interesting. He's also decent. Balcazar. So I've got a couple of combat characters. I've got 3 combat characters. Do I have anybody who has a diplomacy? Balboa with the 2 diplomacy and the rally value. How important is that? I want to take him because he seems more interesting than just going for combat, which which I suspect is the better of the values. But on the other hand, if I am going to be over on this map because it's close, I'm not sure that I don't need combat, but so you're going to need diplomacy as you hit more valuable areas. And valuable areas are hard to hit over here. That's the problem, is that there's 4s up here and there's 4s down here, but you really kind of have to walk through a bunch of shit. Did I say it was still 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 6. Yeah, I guess I'm at about the same, a little bit further. But I'll take Balboa there. Yeah, he's on the wrong map. There you have it. I get a 5, which is a fair amount, 18. 5 in debt for a larger force than anyone else. Now, I don't have the combat capability that Pizarro does, so I really don't want to challenge him. Not that I, in direct fighting, not that I really can anyway, because unless he pisses off the governor, we're not gonna have the opportunity for Spanish versus Spanish fighting. That puts me on the final choice, and as far as I'm concerned, these guys are all kind of iffy. which means I'm going to go... I would rather have the high combat than any of these other options. The rally doesn't seem that important to me. Out of them, I mean, I can pick anybody I want. I'll take... Pounced Lion. I feel like I should be using him. I'll take Alvarado. That puts the rest of these then onto the same pile with the Browns. They don't come in until turn 2. We make a quick roll here. Oh, I forgot to put these guys. We know where they're starting. Oh, we don't know who they are though. Pizarro. I didn't put anybody out. And who else is that? Balboa. Okay. They were going to be here. Let's see where Almagro wants to start. Almagro has combat and diplomacy. Honestly, coming out of here, you're immediately doing exploration. I feel like I have a little bit more flexibility coming out of here, to tell you the truth. Okay, and then the final one is Alvarado, who will be here. Now, what you don't have is a means of... Did I roll the die for him? I don't think I did. What you don't have is a means of distinguishing what that initial order was that the players selected in. So you're going to have to write that down and remember it. For me, it's easy. I just do the zigzag up the table again, which is one reason why, hey, you know, table seating might be the best thing for that order, but, you know, I could see people griping about that because people like to gripe. So let's take a look at what his funding is going to be. And we don't know where he wants to start. He could start in... Also, I don't know how this from to is handled. I think of them as the same space, but I think it costs a movement to switch focus. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. Okay, he's got shit funding of only 12. He's probably going to be taking a huge amount of debt. He might go with a smaller force. I don't know. Hope that he can make it. Okay, $7 of debt. I'm putting myself in this Panama. There's nothing that stops these guys from coming up this way if they don't like how crowded their map is getting or what they're finding. But, you know, I feel like by placing myself here, I'm making more of a claim down in this area. Of course, my nearest 4 is way over here. That's a lot of hiking directly from here. Which I think means I probably want to sail, I guess, to here, because otherwise 1, 2, 3, further from there. You know what? Screw it. I'll just go up here as well and join in with them. Now, the next thing we do is we move into the turn, and everybody would be allowed to discard any cards that they wanted to. And now each player is going to grab 10 cards and drop 2 of them. Now, before we do that, nope. So this is done simultaneously. So no initiative there. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We're pulling for Cortez first here, just because he's first in order. And let's take a look at what we have. So we have a missionary that aids with diplomacy. That's a useful card. This is definitely a useful card. Extra food can prevent me from having to make a stop. Hostile chief. This is screwing with someone else. I'm going to keep screwing with someone else cards off to the side because in general, in a 2-player game, they're perfectly reasonable to grab right away. But in a 5-player game, or any amount over 2, you're pissing someone off by playing against them. So unless you've got a handful of shit, you probably don't want to play cards that are going to screw with someone else particularly. May be played against any player attempting diplomacy. The chief angrily... okay. This is a weaker version of this, even though it looks fancy. Disgruntled soldiers. Well, he's got a handful of garbage for people. Creditors demand payment. So, remember how this works. This wipes out your debt, and if you have any victory points, it gets rid of them based on the debt. I'm going to put that over here. This is a definite discard. It's of no use at this point in the game. Free the king can be used against a space that has a captured king. This is a nasty to the other player. And priest's hide treasure, again a nasty to other player. Right then. Well, I definitely keep these two. I think most of the cards are good cards, so I'm definitely discarding this. What's my other discard? I am going to get rid of the arrest warrant because no one's at negative. I could play it against someone to drop them to negative and make their life harder. And how significantly harder is that? It can be a pretty big deal. This requires a morale hit, and it causes more morale hits. You know what? Let me get rid of the disgruntled soldiers instead. Now, these are discarded so no one else can see them. And the only way I can see doing that at this stage in the game is to put them face down. And I'm going to turn them like that because once cards actually get discarded. Because order doesn't matter, I'll go to the next player over here. But you know what? My batteries are almost dead. I've used up a lot of, the juice. Those are still charging. And much as I would like to get started, let me see if I can get a charge going on one of these other cameras. It didn't work before. What happens, I have this one, and it doesn't charge. It doesn't look like it's charging. Actually, what's happening is it's constantly running, which was one of the problems with it. The other is the screen died. That one down there looks like it's charging for a moment when you plug it in, but then stops, and I don't think it actually charges. I think I've tested that out. Those, I think, are the only two I have that run off these batteries. I have tons of other cameras, but I can't combine them, and I need these little guys to hold in my hand. They work well. And then, of course, the other one I have, that, Samsung or whatever, the screen, everything looks yellow. It's horrible. Okay, so let's take a look at the second guy here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I don't think I'm going to look at everybody's cards to this degree, but we got such a weird such a weird set. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. Poison darts. Played a moment. A player declares. Okay, so this could be obnoxious, and I kind of like that as a baddie card. Doctor's good. Trade goods is good. Support for the church gives you a bonus to fundraising. I'm going to have a fundraising turn next turn, so I definitely want to hold this. Assassination. You can assassinate a king or conquistador. Now, assassinating a king doesn't really do you much good. This is, again, a bad card. It's something you do nasty to someone else. Killing a king in their area is problematic because they can no longer use him as a hostage. Influence with the governor sounds nice. Kalike's wife, bonus friendly action. Bad translation. Bolas. This is going to be combat Indians. The Indians get +1 to their die roll in the first combat round. Okay. And this one allows you to do 2 expeditions on the same impulse. This might be useful if I want to bring a second expedition in on that second turn. I don't know if I do. So let's look at what these are. So the assassination, I'd need an 11 or 12 here and an 11 or 12 here. I get 2 shots at killing a conquistador. That would force somebody into playing instead of their best Conquistador, one of these crappy ones. Honestly, I think I like those, which means I'm going to throw these away. These are bad cards. They hurt the other players, but this one requires there to be a combat, which there might be, and, you know, it could fuck them up pretty bad, and a bad translation screws up their diplomacy, but, you know, they don't seem as impressive as the try to wipe out a Conquistador, which seems pretty mighty to me. Of course, I have to play this during my own turn, but it doesn't cost me anything to do so. And now I'm going to shift down this way. I'll come back if I have anything interesting to say. That was a more reasonable hand. Still felt a little heavy on the bad stuff. But you probably are going to be forced to hold at least one bad card. You know, one anti-other player card. This guy's hand was just ridiculous. Kind of an intriguing set here. Okay, letter from the crown cancels an arrest warrant. That's nice. Local guide, good stuff. Hostages gives you a bonus in plunder. Mano a Dios. These are great. Or de Dios. These are great cards because they allow you to influence, you know, your own die rolls that go bad against you. Influence with the governor. Can be useful because if you get screwed out of a governor bonus, you can cancel that out. One thing about the cards, you kind of want to play them each turn. Because remember, you're allowed to discard any cards you like, and then you draw a full new hand of 10. So unless something's really important, and this might be, you probably don't want to just hold it. And the Mano de Dios might be something you just want to hold, because it's just such a useful card. Keep it until it's really, really important. But we got a couple of interesting ones here that feel a little different to me that I want to deal with. Creditors demand payment, that's definitely getting thrown away. Okay, city has new chief. Designate one city that's allied to the player. Its chief has died and a new chief no longer supports the alliance. Return that city to a neutral state. This is a bad card, and it's probably... I thought it allowed you to regenerate a chief if one was dead, which might be kind of different. Priest hide treasure. This is more useful than either of these two. This one, somebody has to have found a chief already. And we know what we're keeping, basically. This can be used against an expedition attempting plunder. The plunderers violate the sacred women. The target must subtract 1 from the plunder die roll. I might as well keep it, you know, whatever. Priest hide treasure similarly. But this is an interesting one. This is a legend, El Dorado. This will allow me to place the legend card. Now, these are kind of weird because you don't really want them holding up space in your hand. I had a player doing that. I think Cortez was doing that in my solo game. He had a handful of like 4 of these, and I just didn't want to play any of them because they give you something. But you know, they're not worth holding in your hand. But it's better than these things. I can put something on the board, and you know, I can either put it far, far away from everybody, or maybe I can play it since I've already had to make the decision which map I'm starting on before I get to see my cards. You know, otherwise, I might have started on this map with the hopes of going down this way. Of course, everybody's going to head that way, so that would be kind of dumb. But yeah, I might play this and try to make a quick stab for legend right away. I don't have a whole huge force, which, you know, there's certain advantages to not having a big force, one of which is, well, the division of gold and whatnot. But that doesn't really matter for the legends. On the other hand, for the legends, you don't really need a big force because you're not going to be facing a lot of natives right away. On the other hand, I could set sail for deeper this way with the hopes of playing it out there and taking a chance. The chance of getting a legend is pretty low, whereas the 5-point bonus for First Empire, although not at the same level as the bonuses that you could get at the high end for the legends, you're kind of in a race for that. And if you don't play that race game, you might not get it. So yeah, this will be his hand. That's the third. And then we'll draw some more. for this guy, I actually have three cards that are just good action cards, right, for myself. Not necessarily great. This one gives me a couple of bucks on my next Conquistador, so I have to hold it between turns. But it doesn't make it to the discard phase, so it doesn't really hurt there. Two of them are combat cards. You could use these on either end. You could use these for your own use or to favor enemy natives, whatever. A bunch of these are just bad cards. We've seen most of them. Theft, though, is interesting. Take a d6 worth of gold from any expedition and put it with any of your expeditions on the same map. If it's not on the same map, you remove it from the game. That might be worth holding. If somebody starts plundering and I don't have the ability, to plunder along with them at the same level, this could be really useful. So I'm going to actually hold that rather than just a normal bad card. The others are iffy. I kind of like Lost and Indian Ambush better. Plunder is unlikely to happen. Diplomacy, not as unlikely as Plunder, but still on the first turn probably won't happen. All right, another interesting set, or weird set. Got a couple that I'm interested in myself. Local Guide, this is just useful. Gives me a bonus on the die roll for discovery. Probably just worth using. Intrigues at Court, definitely worth using. This can play with the Governor Index. It's a little dangerous. There's some risk to it, but you can get bonuses off of it. That's great. Ultimatum, I'm iffy on Ultimatum because I'm so unlikely to get morale hits this early in the game, like on the first couple turns, that it means I'll be holding this card for a while, and it may not be a great card for that. Lost is a bad card for other people that can be played right away. I think I'm more likely to keep that than Ultimatum, but we're trying to make a decision. Royal Heir, this is the thing that I thought the other thing was with the king coming out. If a chief if a king's been eliminated, you can replace him and he can be under your control. Again, it's a good card, but I think it's later in the game. Hostile chief played against another player doing diplomacy. That might be more useful. But then I have a fistful of combat cards. I've never seen this kind of set. So, I think these are more useful. Disables an enemy horse. Painted Warriors bonuses the Indian's treachery. This only works against Spanish. That's probably not going to be happening. So which one do I want to hold? Do I want to hold the Royal Heir in case I kill the king somehow? Or the Ultimatum? Hard call. Neither one seems very likely. I'll put it here. Chances are, I'm going to be discarding those cards that were kind of late picks. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to check the battery there, see if it's loading. If it is, that changes the dynamic a little bit, and maybe I play a little. No, it didn't do any good for me, which is what I thought was the case. The reason that camera died in the first place was the battery situation. So, and the fact the plug didn't really sit in it properly. So I think I'm in a situation where, yeah, I had to use my reserve battery. I'll swap it out and whatever at some point. But I've got to kind of wander away for, a couple hours. This doesn't work out to be the case when I'm playing something like the Aspirin Essling or whatever, because any of the real war games, or when I'm deep into a game and I can step away a lot. But I really do have to show a lot of what's going on at the early stages of a game. So I'm sad to say I can't just keep rolling on. I actually really would have liked to at this point. And I forgot somebody. Somebody's got their Governor Index. Should be on the board there. Yeah, I think the tracks are too crowded to have all 5 players on them. There are plenty of games that are able to do that, but with the bigger counters and the big boxes and whatnot, there's just not, there's not enough space for the size tracks that you'd want. Ideally, I think what you'd want, you might want to print something out like this, is something like a expedition, a player mat. They can hold a couple of expeditions so that you're not just throwing stuff on top of the cards. But they can also track your own finances on their own little tracks. I really do find that, like, when you have mixed tracks with lots of different counters. So you have your victory point counters here, your pesos and your debt are all tracked on the same chart. I kind of feel like what is going to eventually happen is I'm going to just move all the monetary stuff over there and keep the victory points on this track along with the game turn record, which there is no marker for, but there's an indication that there should be. Just a little bit of weirdness there. All right. Beautiful but cold day. I went out to try to get the mail and almost fell twice. Reserve batteries charging. Everything else is presumably working. Here we are, ready to start doing some stuff. Now, the first thing is the initiative phase. The rules say roll 2 dice for each player, and that determines your ordering. That's idiotic. I've harshed on this before. 2 dice is really a bad choice because you're going to center the dice with about the same odds as you do with 1 die. Much better would be what I'm going to do. Which is a single die to determine which player is in which order. So I'm going to be running this way like I usually do instead of the zigzag that I got to remember for turn 2. So player 5 will be the first. Now I've got to use these suckers to mark the order of play because there's nothing to do so within the game itself. Again, a minor development issue, graphics, whatever. I don't know what I want to say, but somebody the same kind of person who's in charge of making sure the counters are playable and whatnot, should make sure you have what you need to play the game. And here, how do you keep track of how many players? I know that Compass must send things out to playtesters in larger quantities, than some of the tinier companies that I deal with. So this seems inexcusable that somebody didn't say, hey, we need those counters. We need those more than I don't know what, because I do have worries about the counter mix overall. All right, so now we've got 4, and we roll a 4. So we take this one. Here we're going to have to be careful because the colors are a little close between a couple of them. That's really the 2. All right. There's only 3 left, so I can double up. Now it's really odd even. And this one. Yeah, and you can see, I mean, even these are not that easy to distinguish. I thought, well, on different boards, it's going to be not as bad. Anyway, we go to the impulses. The impulse 0 marker is an error. Kind of makes the game move a little more, but we'll follow what's the intent. Activate 1 expedition, okay, or Indians, and play cards. So let's take a look. Our first player is the red player here. And, instead of these, I could use dice like I do in Empires of the Middle Ages, which also has sort of an ordering sequence without any counters to represent it. I chose to use the counters because I can mark moves well that way. So I want to look at my cards and see, hey, is there anything I want to do right away, right? Obviously, these are kind of reactions, either when somebody else is having problems or for me, these are definitely reactions. Ultimatum is something I play in a specific circumstance. The local guide is useful. Intrigues at court, I'm going to just play this. These others I'll hold aside. And so I roll a die. Nobody can really affect this. If I had a Mano a Dios, de Dios, I could use it. I get a 6. I'm going to increase my own index, make myself favored. That gives me 5 extra victory points at the end of the turn. More importantly, it makes me a little safer. This will be going on top of the deck, which means I can slide it to the bottom of the deck, hiding all the cards. And now I have a discard deck that's reasonable. When people discard at the beginning of their turn, they'll slip under the deck. When they discard, when they play a card and it gets discarded, they can put it on top where it's notable. There wasn't anything else I wanted to play. I have any number that I could. There's nothing about my cards that particularly sends me one way or another. So here's the question. Do I go for the easy route, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Where there's possibly an empire in there. Good chance of that. And just run for that right away. Quickest place to find one. There's legends there. If, I draw a legends card or something, that's useful. Or do I head down 1, 2, stop, and then start heading my way 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more? This is 1 turn longer, but it gives me kind of a jump into the riches that are below, in the sense that, look, I can find this. Now, here's the thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there aren't a lot of 4s on this side of the map. That's one issue. But there might be 2 empires down here. I'm going to roll a die, because both have their advantages. Odd, I'll go up towards Venezuela, even down towards Peru. Okay, we're going to go for Peru. Now, I'm allowed to move 6 spaces, but I can't move along here until turn 3. So, 1, 2. Wait, is that where I want to be? 1, 2. All right. I have to stop there. Now, I have cards that could influence my my discovery, but I don't want to use them in shitty spaces that aren't going to show me much, and nobody else really cares at this point in the game about me and about my spaces. So I roll a die. On a 4, 5, or 6, I'll be getting a village. There's never any modifiers based on adjacent civilization for, lack really, for 0 spaces. So I get a 1, that's going to get me a mosquito space. Ooh, that sounds nasty. It is, but only if I stick around there. And that's basically the end of my impulse. I could do other things, I could divide gold or gift the governor or play more cards, but I'm basically done there. Okay, the next one is this, which may be that or maybe this. I'm not sure which. Okay, so is this the white or the yellow? I think this is the white over here on this side of the map. Which, would be, which is obvious if I look here. Okay, and so the yellow is the one that's going. They're on this side of the map. With Pizarro heading this way, there's kind of a, do I want to race and be a little behind him? I don't know. Let's see what my cards are. I have an Indian ambush. Got to keep that in mind because degrading Pizarro is going to help me. He's on my same map. Powerful patron. Not yet. Got to remember to play those at the right time. Lost might be useful, but I could take 2 turns. Don't really want to do that. Well, there aren't a lot of good choices. I'll go here. It's got a -1, but it's on the 1 table. Now again, Pizarro's probably my opponent here. Does he want to mess with me? He could play a lost. Doesn't seem terribly useful. I'd rather hold that if he comes and challenges me more. And remember, he can't come through here, 1, 2, explored space, keep moving, because that was just discovered this round. There's nothing that marks that, but... Okay, so I'm on the 1 level at -1. There's a chance I find something here. At level 1, with nothing next to it, there's a -4 to that. Oh, don't want to do that. Don't want to do that. Jeez. Wow. That's shitty. I did not realize how painful that is. Whew. See, I could end up screwing this whole area over if I don't find stuff because of low rolls. And that's something that I don't really have in mind as a way of playing the game. But you can basically use things like lost cards to fuck somebody over, and that fucks their whole area over. Not, you know, it's not just, oh, I got lost, you know, like it would be in Source of the Nile or something. No, it actually screws up what the world is going to be like over there. So I don't want to land there. I'll land here, where I'm only looking at a -1 to the die roll. This is painful. I didn't realize that. And nobody will screw with me there. 4, I find a village. That will help me on the other space. Of course, that helps other people too. Now, can I do anything with the village? Does anything happen because of it? No, not directly. And this is one of the feelings that I got with the game. You know, when you're playing Source of the Nile, just to compare it, because there's something kind of similar about the exploration and moving around, finding stuff. You move into a hex, you draw a card, it's completely random. But it tells this kind of nice narrative, and something, you know, you find a village and you've got to deal with it. Things happen because of that. Now, somebody could play, not as a reaction, but I think as a card play. You'd have to look at the cards, and I don't want to really deal through them, but an Indian ambush. Well, no, an Indian ambush could be played anyway. So, let's see if we got an Indian ambush here. I don't think I do. Hold on. I don't think anybody drew one. I don't know. Because I looked through the discard pile. I looked through those guys. I don't know. Maybe. But, you know, there's a possibility something happens. But it only happens if somebody triggers it. And there's, you know, instead of sort of the random luck of the draw that happens in Source of the Nile, where you're kind of blundering around, it's not good gameplay. There's no strategy behind, you know, other people being able to influence you. But it does generate a better narrative than what I find comes out of, you know, other people playing things to cause you discomfort. Anyway, that's just my opinion, at least. Where are we? Red went, greenish yellow, which is this guy went. And I get confused because then I see these, and they're kind of close to that same color, but clearly white. So it's like, which one am I on? So that's going to put me on the green. Everybody left is on this side of the map. Again, I kind of have to look at these cards. Influence with the governor. Might as well play it. Maybe not right now, but I just want to get it out of my hand, reduce the hand size, reduce the amount of looking. Support of the church, that's for next turn. I could take an action with a different expedition, but I only have one at this point in the game. I don't want to play these nasties yet, so got to keep checking the battery. It's wearing down already. This thing sucks so much energy. So who am I on? I'm on green. This guy looks green. It's avocado or whatever. Doesn't have anything terribly in his favor here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to go to here. That gets me a 0 at -1. Not optimal. Not at all optimal. Nobody's going to fuck with this. 4, I get a village. That is the best I could hope for. And the advantage of that means I can start making my way inland. If I didn't get that, I might swing around to here and try to enter this way or cut back further out. I believe you're allowed to embark at sea from any space. Let me see if I can find the rules. I don't have a lot of room here. Battery's running out while I flip through. Sea movement. Yeah, it starts at a land space adjacent to sea. Yeah, it's not like there has to be any kind of port or anything, and there's no, hey, you're screwed because you burned your boats. So there goes that. And again, another player out of the way. I'm going to swap batteries because I just don't trust that I'm going to make it through another player. Oh, I got confused. I moved Alvarado. It should be Almagro. Instead, because now we're up to Cortez. I looked at the hand of cards and I'm like, well, I was trying to save the time of spreading them out. I'm like, these look familiar. Okay. There's nothing that stops me from grabbing food now. There might be cards that screw food over, but again, I just want to get the cards out of my hand, reduce the problems. So I'm going to grab food, even though I'm not in a village or anything. I'm getting it here. I guess I'm packing additional food, regardless of whether it says maize there. I don't see anything I really want to play in the short term. We're going to come to points where people are doing more exciting stuff, and other players may want to play a card against them. It's going to be tough. Like I said, playing multiplayer with the amount of reaction cards that this game has doesn't work very well. I would suggest probably for most, if you want to play it solo, there are solo rules for that. But I don't want to capture that. I want to try to capture the competitive nature of the multiplayer game. That's just how I play. It's what I would do on my own without the video, and certainly I think it's more important with the video. So I don't see anything too exciting here with Cortez. I definitely have stuff that'll help me compete with someone else if they're in my way. I don't have a really good option here. I could dive straight down. 1, 2, 3, 4. So trying to get to this is kind of painful. Do I want to delay and push out even further and go for Mexico that Cortez actually went for? I'm going to do this on an odd even, because I think this is a little too tight. But if I head that way, nobody else should head that way, because then they're saying, well, let's make this not only longer to get to, but tighter. I think the Yucatan is the place to go to begin with. We'll see. This might not be too bad. Yeah, I'm going to send Cortez out this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Not do any kind of exploration. Just be at sea with my special food that I've got there. And now we're on the white, which is this guy. Let's spread these out. See what I got here. I got a legend card. Now, here's the thing. There are no legends over here. They're all up here. I don't want to go for a legend right away, though. What I think I'm going to do, I've got a decent size expedition here under Alvarado, is send my second expedition up to deal with the legend if I so desire. I'm not sure, because, I could play this, I could discard it and say screw it if I wish. If influence with the governor, let's help ourselves there. We are either white or yellow. I think we're white. So now there are 3 here. Just trying to get this here. Got a local guide, not too useful on the early card. So I guess we'll come down this way. 1, 2, 3. There's a value to being in a space without the penalty, so I'll go for that. Again, nobody's really going to screw with me. And I roll for a 0. 3, I get nothing. So I don't get mosquitoes. Instead, I get one of these discovered markers. Oh shit, I shouldn't be there. I should be here. I was on the 0 table. So yeah, I get discovered marker there, which means that the 1, I probably don't want to go to that 1. I probably want to hunt around for a village, because without a village, on the 1 table, I'll be facing a -4, which makes it really unlikely to find anything. Is it worse? Well, yeah. I have to roll a 6 to succeed, whereas on the 0s I don't. There's not a lot to this, you know, and that may be one of my concerns about the game as a whole. Is, like I said, when I read through the rules, it was left with kind of a, I'm not sure what I'm facing. We'll see what happens. But when I started fiddling around with it and playing it, I kind of came up with a "is that all" aspect. Okay, we're done with the impulse. For this set, everybody's gone once. There's no roll to end the impulses, so we push this forward. The order of play stays the same because initiative was determined here. So we go back to red. And unfortunately, both of these are red, so I have to look by name. Honestly, what I think would work better than the named characters is maybe a couple of pawns that are marked so you can distinguish them, brightly and clearly colored and notable, and you know, so that you'd know this is the red player, a nice little red pawn there. The problem is you don't know how many conquistadors a single player might have. Maybe little standees or something to encase the pieces in, just to help indicate whose it is, because the names are, in some cases, kind of similar, you know, like these. I got them confused, right? You know, by location. Okay. Again, I have to look at my cards. There's not a lot here. I've got this local guide. That could give me a +1. Unfortunately, I'm in a 0 space, which isn't a great space, but I had to get there to come cut down this way. So I'll go to this space. It's also a 0. There are no penalties for a 0, so I'm just going to roll. I'm not going to waste my guide on this and hope for the best. I get the best. Yay. Get myself a little village here, and that means now I can start exploring out from there. Pizarro could have moved into here to take advantage of this village. That would be a direct challenge on the other player on his map, and that's sort of asking for it. If you start conflicting with each other like that, you're probably going to be fighting. Right now, it looks like the other map, nobody's really fighting. Which, and it's not like, I don't mean that the conquistadors are going to be, you know, hunting each other in combat. You can only do that with a warrant. But rather, you know, they're going to be messing with each other and playing cards against each other. Better than that would be to not mess with each other and, you know, search out my own space. Of course, Pizarro may be at a disadvantage. On the other hand, he's the better character, so he may have more than enough advantages to make up for that. Let's take a look at Balboa. And once again, I just quickly run through these. Now, the weird thing is, if I don't play these cards, though, I'm kind of wasting them, because I'm saying I'll hold them rather than draw a new hand. which, you know, okay. So I may want to do nastiness to someone. I am going to be the one to move into this space. It's got a net -1. Screw me, my cards don't really matter at this point, although they might in combat. But his might. For example, a lost card seems like a good idea here. He's moving towards me now, he has to. That lost card is going to be a -1 to the discovery roll. I've already got a -1. That puts a -2 on the 1 table, which starts to make it less and less likely that I'm going to be able to build out from there. Remember, if I don't build out from there, I've got a problem moving into here if I get mosquitoes or something. So Balboa is going to want to counter that. Now, there's nothing that indicates the ordering here. Right? So if I had a card that allowed me to improve my chances, I think I can still play it in reaction to the fact that I got this lost here. But I don't have such a card. I'm in a level 1 space at -2. If I look here, there's a village. That gives me no additional modifier. So I'm at -2. I get a 3. That's not a bad roll. I get another village. And that means this level 1 space is safer. I could get into a position where I really can't find anything up here. And that's just garbage. And that may be kind of the historical situation. Move him on. Look at the green player's cards. What is green doing? Well, he's Almagaro. He's over here. He's got a village. So he's got expansion capability, which to me means I move into here. Not allowed to do diplomacy against a village. Got nothing I really want to play. As the deck gets closer, I may play things like assassination or something to try to wipe out a leader who has an advantage on me. I also have the poison darts, which is similar. Okay. Does anybody hate me for being here? Well, Cortez might. I'm going to roll a die. On odds, I'm going to check my Cortez cards and see if I can kind of screw with him. In fact, both of the players might have a problem with this. Cortez is not going to. This guy feels like he's further away. I'll make it on a 1 or a 2. He's going to consider it. He will. So he looks through and really has nothing to hurt the green player. Okay, which means I went forward. I've got no things that modify me here. I got things that modify if I get into trade situations. I'm on the 1 table with no modifiers because of the village. Note that nobody's got any kind of discovery capabilities. Everybody's just as good at pushing on and finding stuff. The leader capabilities all have to do with combat diplomacy and then rallying troops. I get a shitty 1. This is bad. This means I have to make it back to a level 0 space in order to find another village. Because this one, there's nothing going internal. There's no population there, regardless of any, rumors I had or whatever of stuff going forward. That's kind of how it plays out in my mind, at least. That's going to put me on blue, which is the Cortez piece. Again, I don't want to compete with him. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 doesn't look like a bad place to go. Nobody's terribly upset about this. I know we rolled for dice to see if anybody would do anything. I really doubt that I'm going to play a card to improve my situation in this. So this is a 0 and no modifiers. I get a 5. That's a nice little village. A happy little village. You know, that reminds me, something I thought about making a video for, but I decided against. If you're familiar with Bob Ross, everybody's familiar with Bob Ross, even if he's dead. I thought of doing a parody of him, Rob Boss. It would be a clean-shaven skinhead who, you know, is talking about, look at the miserable little fucking tree, and doesn't know how to paint either. I think I could pull that part off at least, if not the characterization. Anyway, we've continued him here. And you know, that's the extent of the joke, you know. I mean, sure, you could build it out and make it more interesting and everything. But, what would I get? One video from it and I'd have a shaven head. Oh, okay. So here we're at Alvarado, who's down here. He found nothing. Shitty town. Yo, so stupid. Could have had red snapper. So I'll move here. Nobody's upset about him. He's far away and doesn't seem to be doing terribly well. He gets a 2. He finds some mosquitoes, which, you know, is no better than what he found before. So now he's regretting not starting at Panama. Who knows, you know? It really didn't make a difference. But yeah, it's tough to get yourself started. Now, like with, you know, Source of the Nile, you're kind of blundering around just hoping you find things. The problem comparatively is I don't feel like the narrative's as strong as with this. It might be stronger if you were playing the solo rules for the game. We move the impulse chart forward again, and we go to another turn. I'm going to back away a little bit because not much of interest is happening, and I can handle my decisions better when I'm not on camera. And I'll kind of jump in as things of interest happen. I think you've seen some of the basic mechanisms. As we start to find more, maybe we'll see more excitement. I lied. Okay, let me look at Pizarro's situation because it is kind of interesting right now. He's got a village. He's got a 0 space next to him. Well, he's got a 2 space next to him. But a 2 space with nothing bigger than a village is a -3 on the results table. That means I have to roll a 5 or a 6 to find anything. That's not appealing if I don't have some sort of bonuses, which I don't. So, and if I do play somebody might play penalties just to cut me off. So then my choices are a -1 and a 1 space, which isn't too bad, and maybe gets me into this 2 space. Or going into another 0 space and just keeping going. I'm going to go for the -1 space, for the 1 space, but you know, you can make arguments in either direction. Not the importance. So these guys don't have legends in their hand. The guy who has legend in his hand started way over here. You know, these guys are close. Of course, Rainforest has its own yuckiness, but these guys are relatively close to being able to get a roll on a legend. Whereas this guy, well, it was this guy, has the legend cards. He's going to have to wait for his second explorer and send him up there. And he wants to find an empire first, because that's 5 points you can't get any other way, which means maybe he'll just discard that card because it's kind of a waste. Card play here. Pizarro's playing a local guide. This gives him a +1 chance, which will negate the -1 there. Great. But this guy has decided to play another -1. Balboa has decided to play another -1 to the guy on the same map as him to try to score with him. So we're looking at a level 1, I believe, at -1. We have the village, so there's no penalty there. And we actually find a town. That's a step higher. Now, nothing exciting happens right now, but now I can make diplomacy, and I have an advantage towards moving into those. What's great about the biggie about the diplomacy is, yeah, maybe I get gold or something, but much more important, I can get food. Pizarro has no food, and he's got to get it by the end of the turn, and the turn might end right now and just have people starving. You really want to find something you can diplomatize early in the game. On this first part of the game, you could cause yourself real problems, start getting morale hits and whatnot on an unlucky end of impulses early. Of course, it affects everyone because everybody's playing on the same impulse track. Something just a little bit different enough I want to go in for. Balboa is exploring into here. This is a 2-space. He's got a village next to him, which... Uh-oh. No, never mind. What did I decide? I decided I have to go into here. Ah, I have to hope for a town? Seriously? Wow, that's shitty. Pizarro would like to fuck with him because he just fucked with me, but he doesn't have the cards to do so. I don't know where this was. We'll move it to somewhere. Yeah, so I'm going into the 1 space at a -1. Not great, but I need to find a town in order to have a good chance of expanding into deeper areas. 4, I'm lucky enough to have found one. And again, that means that now it's available for diplomacy and me finding food and whatnot. Sorry, I didn't mean to come back there for that. I thought I was moving into a 2-space, which would be interesting. I gotta swap batteries. Northern map. Let me check the order that I did. Green is first. Green is who? Almagarro. He found a village, which means he can try to press in again. Cortez found a village. He needed one. It's a 1-space. He needed to find something. A town would have been more... Not really. A village isn't that big a hurt because the only spaces next to this are 1s anyway. His pressing in, there's no advantage to finding a town at that point, except that he could have stopped and gotten food at a town. And then finally, our last guy found a village, so now he can start digging in and see if he can make it towards, where an empire might actually be. That's all the players. Nobody played any cards or anything over there. They all looked, thought about it, decided against. Turn ends on a 2 to 3. Now people have to start thinking about the cards as we hit this. People have to start thinking about the cards that might end, that might come into play if, I'm trying to say here, that they don't want to have in their hand, that just hurt other people. So I think we're going to start seeing a little bit more dickiness, things like the assassination attempt. Probably Cortez is the best choice for that, for this guy. Although he could go for Pizarro. He's in competition with the people on this map. He's just not worried about, them directly finding stuff. And then the next set of Conquistadors, which is going to come in at the beginning of next turn, is just not as impressive, right? Now for real, and this isn't that different. Pizarro's going into a 2-space. Nobody's really trying to stop him at this point. People over here, they might think about it, man. I don't know. Is he doing better than anyone else? He's doing better than Cortez. Yeah, he's doing better than all of these. So let me think about whether any of them want to take a peek too. Okay, Almagarro, if he has any nasty cards, will play on this. He has an assassination. Not worth it. Is it? I don't know. Because, wiping Cortez out means a weaker opponent on my map. Pizarro over here, I'm not so worried about that. If I had a discovery counter there, that would be different, like something that could make him lost. That would slow him down, and that's it. So he's going into a 2-space with a town next to him. A town means he's fine. And we roll. He rolls a shitty 2, which just gives him another town. Now, a town's not good enough to get you into a 3-space. What? Most likely. A town in a 3-space gives you a -1 penalty. It's probably worth doing because this is the only entry space into these 2 spaces. So, you know. And what I want to do is I want to hit this, because that's the first place where an empire could exist. I'm getting a lot less cities in this game, but I didn't realize the modifiers when I played it solo. All right. Maybe Pizarro wants to take chances and keep exploring, but Balboa doesn't think that's a good idea, so he's going to try to do diplomacy at his town. Pizarro plays this hostile chief, though, which is going to be a -2 to his diplomacy. I have a 2 diplomacy. We look for the table, and basically we're on a 0 here. We roll 2 dice, even though it says 1. And we get a shitty old 3. That turns the city hostile. What happens? And not that one. Sorry, town. The town is now hostile. What happens? Some troops show up. Unfortunately, there really should be an indication of the rule. Maybe the 5.16 is good enough here as to what exactly shows up when I find this. It does not, which means now I have to start hunting for what the impact is. And maybe it's in the diplomacy section. Change of status, flip the marker to the corresponding side. I think some troops immediately show up. I don't have something that leads me into that. So I'm gonna look and try to see if I can find that, because I seem to remember that. But if I was playing and didn't remember that, I would say, oh, okay, it's hostile, whatever. You know, that's a penalty on here. Maybe all that means is that Pizarro can now play something else that he doesn't have. You know, because I'm not intimately familiar with what all the cards do, so I don't know whether or not there are cards that impact hostile villages, and that's the way you get an attack in a hostile village, or if making the village hostile brings troops, which is what I suspect it is. I seem to have a memory of that, but I'm not seeing it right away in the rules, which means people can, you know, fail. Even once they're used to the game, coming back to it a few years later or whatever, it's problematic if that's the case. It should indicate what happens when a city becomes hostile. I don't think I have a mano a Dios or de Dios. I know somebody does. Nope. Could be useful here. A couple of minutes and didn't find anything. I'll go back to it. But I ran into the defining rule about these -1s, and it leads me to question whether or not those are just like in error, or maybe should be over here or something. Again, I don't want to pull the PDF up. It may just be this, you know. So I don't know. The idea of opening a PDF, it's an irritation compared to like something that's available right on the web that I could just click on. So here it says certain coastal spaces have an intrinsic -1 as printed on the map. These aren't coastal spaces, so I don't know what's up with them. But on the other hand, the rainforests also have -1s on them in some cases, and I don't know. Those aren't coastal spaces either. So I'm assuming those are intentional. But maybe they belong somewhere along here too. I don't know. Because I had kind of, you know, I had a couple of bad experiences with some early Compass games where there were serious, you know, issues, not just with something like the graphic design is so icky that it's like kind of unplayable or whatever, but there were issues where the game itself, you know, map board pieces, the map had mistaken stuff on it, counters were mistaken, whatever. Rules were just absolutely missing or stuff. And they really cleaned up their act as far as I was concerned, and several of their games that I picked up in the last few years I've been really impressed with. This is beginning to lead me to question maybe they're still just as spotty as they you know, they were. And the matter is, I got unlucky, then I got lucky. I know they have a reputation for being kind of spotty about, you know, publishing not fully developed games, and I have the real fear. So I do one of the things that I like to do. I look at the credits for who developed it. And what do I see? I see game design Southard, editing and proofreading Neubauer. He's a nice guy, I know him. Some playtesting and what. But you know what I don't see? I don't see a developer. Does that mean there isn't one? I mean, I would assume so. And yeah, you don't want to release a game without a developer. I don't care. You know, I don't care that Southard's an experienced and accomplished designer. There still should be somebody in that position. Now, Michael might have been sitting in sort of that position, but kind of explains why there's weird unnoted things, there's errors on the map, there's counters that aren't, there's nobody in charge of the sort of just making sure that you've got a good product that plays well, who isn't invested in it and, you know, isn't as likely to look over things. You know, when you're invested as a developer, I get the feeling that it's just easier not to be picky about stuff, even when it's, in some cases, stuff that isn't your fault at all. It isn't, you know, like you not being able to see problems in your design, but rather, you know, something as simple as the color schemes or the map not having everything there. Yeah, you want somebody who's really in place, whose job is to break the game, you know, and to see, hey, what's wrong? No, this is bad. This is bad. You know, just keep coming back with that kind of answer. And that's what you want in a developer. It really is. And I'm seeing too many holes here. And then I look and I see there's no one credited with being a developer. Now, it might also mean that somebody was working as a developer and dropped the project for various whatever reasons, and it got left in a position where there's basically no end developer, but you know, and whoever was doing it at first is like, no, don't put my name on this, you know, or whatever. You know, I didn't get to see the final product. I had disagreements at some point or another. But you really need to bring someone on as a developer. And, you know, if you can't afford that, well, I mean, the hobby's got its issues. That's all I have to say. But there's a lot of people out there willing to do work for free, or close enough to it to make things come about. Anyway, what the hell am I at? I was trying to look something up. Oh, I'm trying to find whether the troops show up. I knew we had something here. Indian forces. This is way deep in the rules, much further than I would have thought it would be. Units are deployed as follow. In a city when the city becomes hostile for any reason. And this is in the city. In a city when the city becomes allied. In a town or city if the player uses Indian uprisal in that space. So I'm guessing that a hostile town just doesn't present enough of a threat to cause an issue. So the fact that this town became hostile is not problematic. I'm going to have to swap batteries again, but I think that's the end of the Balboa turn. Unless he has another card he wants to play, but he's got issues here. And he's getting kind of pissed at Pizarro. I don't know which way things went. I think he did the nasties on Pizarro first, so that's okay. So I was talking about Conquistadors doing the nasty on each other, and since we're doing that, oh fuck. Son of a bitch, I did the wrong guy, didn't I? Almagano. Found a town here. He did that first. He has something he wants to do, though. He wants to assassinate Cortez. Roll 2 dice. Assassination hand works on an 11 or 12. Now, I can force a re-roll on this, I think, if I have a mano de Dios. How about that? Cortez is dead. Target is removed from play. Let's see if he has anything to force a reroll. You know, normally you wouldn't be able to play this on somebody else's roll, so I'm not even sure if it would. But yeah, there goes Cortez, and that creates an interesting situation where I get one of these at random. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so I'm just going to roll from the top. 2, and the mighty Cortez has been replaced by Pedro de Cieza de Leon. Great. Cortez is out of the game, and oh, you know, I didn't mention these things. I'm going to replace them, but I kept them around, at least I think I am. I kept them around because I wanted to talk about them. The cards came in these little, not shrink wraps, but little envelopes that have stickiness on the side. If need be, like if you brought this unpunched, you know, unplayed someplace, and you know maybe didn't have your bags or whatever, you could completely put this away by putting counters back in the little square, in the little spaces. Those work fine. But also you can put the cards in those little baggy things. You might not think about that if you're bringing, you know, a brand new game someplace. You might not think about, hey, do I have baggies for my cards or whatever. In fact, I was considering keeping them, but you know, I like my regular plastic bags better, even if they are more likely to spill than the sticky stuff. Anyhow, we gotta find the counter for that and replace Cortez with that. Mighty blow. We're down to a 0-0-1 from a 2-2-3. So we've gone from what I consider probably the best leader in the game, Pizarro is good competition for him, to one of the worst, which means I almost certainly want to bring my new Conquistador in to replace him. He'll still be with it though. He doesn't go away. I still have that shitty replacement one, which has its penalty because he costs me towards towards divisions of gold. So this guy has just fallen greatly in terms of how well he's doing. I played this at the end of my action, and that's green. And on to the not Cortez. Lucky I have a food with me because I may not make it to a level 2 city by going in this direction. This direction's kind of, the way I went is kind of risky. In part because I wasted an impulse entirely at sea. So we go there, that's just a 1. If we get a town, I'm allowed to do diplomacy on it though, if I get another turn. You know, I mean, I could have gotten it here, right? But how much of a dick does Almagadro want to be? He feels like he's done his dicky move, so he's going to hold off. Now, this guy's got a response, which is going to be nasty, but so that's on the level 1, no penalties. Okay, so we're at risk here with nothing but a discovered marker here. And that means we're going to have to backtrack. And, you know, this is problematic. So, like this space, I mean, we could run to here, and that's kind of what I think we're going to do. But this space, which I'd have to stop to enter, that's not going to hold that's not going to get me to a 2 very easy. You know, I've got to work my way through. So that's kind of problematic. And it's very easy for you to get screwed by discovered spaces, you know, until you get to the level 3 spaces in the game. Otto finds himself a town based off this village. We have all gone. And now 2 through 5 ends the turn. This is why I think maybe the 0 space should be in there, because it's hard to get yourself established, you know. But, hey, It should be rough. You're exploring a new world, man. Uh-oh, turn ends. Okay. That's a big deal. So we hit subsistence. Whew. All right. Let's work our way down the board. Cieza de Leon has food. I feed my people. This isn't friendly or anything. So he's fine. Almagro does not have food. I'm in a town, but it's not an allied place at all. Only cities can ally with you anyway. So I'm going to starve. That means I have a morale check to make. I get -1 for starvation. No, in a -1 space. Desert or rainforest. Malaria, doctor. Okay. So I just roll a die. Now, I could conceivably help myself with this somehow. With a reaction or something, maybe? I don't know. Don't see anything. I almost roll a 1, which would be bad. I get a morale hit. Not terrible, but no food over here. He's not in anything special. Let me just check his cards, make sure. So I have the Mano de Dios. I don't feel like I want to roll that. I don't feel like I want to use, I think he had one as well. I don't want to use that for something as minor as a single morale hit. Is that dumb? I don't know. 4. 4 is a morale hit. First of all, the reroll, I mean, I could use it for a +2 and have a chance of making it out, but the reroll isn't going to give me a very good chance. So he also starves. Let's make our way up here. No food. Yeah, everybody's in trouble. I only roll 1 die. A morale hit. Everybody gets starving. And let's just check Pizarro, but I'm pretty sure he doesn't have anything I want to... I have the ultimatum, but that's an action card that's done after I take morale. And I might lose a unit from it. Morale hit. Okay. And let me make sure I'm not in anywhere special. Oh, he had a -1. I think he rolled high enough that... See, now this is, again, not a coastal space with a -1. Legal, not, I don't know. He's in a hostile town. That can't help. Is that an impact here? I don't think so. Okay. Nobody is in a malaria zone. Malaria is either mosquitoes or rainforest. We checked for victory. Okay. Well, I don't think anybody has any victory points except the 5 points that they get off the governor index. That's not 200. If there were any plunder or rolled gold markers, those would get removed at this point. There are not. So we're going to move to turn 2. We're going to load this sucker up. It's gone into a lot of detail. I know you haven't seen much yet. This is only the first turn. You know, we haven't discovered a city yet, as an example. It would have been possible to do so, but there are a lot of players playing against anybody who's doing better than them. You know, so a lot in the 2-player game. You're playing against somebody who's going to throw all their bulk of their badness at you. In a multiplayer game at this stage in the game, everybody is going to throw the bulk of their badness at anyone who's poking their head above everyone else. And right now, Cortez was poking his head above everyone else by being so far away on his own. That may change to Almagro being more important, but you got to compare that to, hey, Pizarro's got pretty good stats. Killing him off or making life hard on him is going to be good. On the next turn, what's going to happen is Before we hit this, we get the reinforcing conquistadors. So everybody gets a second conquistador. And they're either going to place it in the starting locations or with their current expedition. Now, when you have a shitty conquistador, putting it with your current expedition makes definite sense. It's a hard argument to say why you would put it not with your current expedition, except if your current expedition is doing just fine. Because the thing is, you get, however many impulses there are, and you get one action with one of your conquistadors in each of those cases. But there's some players who have cards that allow them to take an extra action. And then there's kind of the, well, is it worth me maybe going up and trying to find a legend that I have in hand or something? Or is there something else that I'd want to do with that extra expedition? Because I can always combine the expeditions later. If I gather them together, they can combine into one, taking the worst morale. All right, this one's going up. Tonight's dancing night, so this is all that's going up today. Probably not get back to this until Sunday, although maybe I feel especially good tomorrow. Get a little bit in, who knows? It's hard to tell. My video game that I'm involved in has an event going on, but I've pretty much decided I can't play in that event. I can play in it. There's constant stuff going on that gives you rewards and whatnot. It's how they hook you into the game, is just, hey, you play a little bit more, you're going to get this. You play a little bit more, you're going to get this. So that you end up playing way too much, whether you're paying or not. But yeah, it would cost me a significant amount of money, like $100 to win this event to the extent that I want to, and a lot of effort. And so now I feel kind of freed up in that I don't have to play for it. Yes, I get benefits the more I play, but those are kind of continuous. So now it's kind of in this, hey, it's in the state that the game is always in. I'm bummed because it's a good reward at the end of it, but yeah, I just can't do it.